The first scream echoed through the east wing long before anyone understood what had happened, but Emma heard it clearly. She froze in the hallway, the linen she carried slipping from her hands as a cold wave ran through her. When she rushed toward the sound, she arrived just in time to see courtiers crowding around the trembling boy on the floor. Liam, the Vampire King's youngest son, sat with his hands pressed to his ears, rocking gently, trying to block out the noise. His silver eyes darted around, frightened but silent, and that silence became his curse the moment the accusations began. 2 guards pointed at him, their faces twisted with certainty rather than evidence. "He broke the royal seal again," one shouted. "He was seen near the vault door." Another added, "This boy has no control. Someone must stop him." Emma felt her stomach coil. She knew Liam wasn't capable of deception or cruelty. He lived in patterns, in repeated steps, in small comforts. He needed quiet, not interrogations. But before she could speak, the Queen herself approached, tall and rigid as if carved from bone. Her gaze swept the room, cold enough to still every breath. Emma inhaled sharply. She had seen that look before. The Queen's disappointment always found the weakest target. And Liam, with his gentle silence and darting eyes, was the easiest to blame. Emma clenched her fists, aware of her place. She was only a nanny, a human one at that, and the court never listened to humans. But something in her refused to let the boy be thrown into darkness again. Before we continue, I want to invite you to something very special. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This helps me see that you support me and enjoy my stories. And comment below which city you're watching from. Now, let's continue. Liam's breaths came in fast bursts, shallow and panicked. Emma knelt beside him, ignoring the whispers that followed her. She knew he understood far more than people assumed. His silence did not mean ignorance. It meant carefulness. It meant protection. It meant survival. She gently tapped the rhythm he always responded to on the floor beside him. 3 light taps, a pause, then 2 more. His trembling lessened, and slowly he lifted his gaze to hers. "Liam didn't do this," she said, louder than she intended. The room fell silent. The Queen's eyes narrowed like blades. Emma swallowed hard, but didn't back down. "He doesn't go near the vault. He hates confined spaces, and he never touches the seals. He avoids anything unfamiliar." Her voice shook, but not from fear, from the urge to shield him from the cruelty around them. The king entered then, sweeping through the room with the quiet authority that made even the shadows straighten. His tall frame cut through the crowd, and his piercing red eyes scanned every face before they settled on his son. His expression softened for the briefest moment, a father's fear slipping through the cracks of a ruler's facade. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold neutrality expected of him. "Who is responsible for this accusation?" he asked. The guards stepped forward. Emma saw their confidence waver under the king's gaze, but they doubled down. "We found the seal broken and the boy near the east corridor," one insisted. "He fled when we called out." Liam shook his head rapidly, small movements that grew faster as the room closed in. Emma gently laid a hand on his shoulder. "He wasn't fleeing," she corrected. "You startled him. Loud voices always do." The Queen's voice sliced through the tension. "He has caused enough disruptions. We must discipline him." Emma felt Liam flinch. The king hesitated, torn between duty and instinct. Something Emma had noticed many times but never understood. But something else caught her attention then. A faint scent on the guards' uniforms. Iron, dust, and something sweet, like crushed berries. She knew that scent. It came from the lower kitchens, nowhere near the vault. Her pulse quickened. The pieces clicked together in a single flash of clarity. "You weren't near the vault at all," she said, staring directly at the guards. "You're lying." Gasps rippled across the room. The guards stiffened. The Queen's expression darkened, and the king took one slow step forward. "What are you accusing them of, human?" the Queen demanded. Emma lifted her chin, heart pounding. "I'm accusing them of framing a child, because they think no one will defend him." A storm gathered behind the king's eyes, and for the first time, Emma realized the truth. Defending Liam would change everything in this kingdom, and the real culprit was much closer than anyone dared imagine. Emma felt every heartbeat echo in her ears as the king's gaze settled on her. The courtiers stood frozen, unsure whether to breathe or bow. Liam leaned into her side, his fingers curling into her sleeve, seeking the only anchor he trusted in that suffocating room. She tightened her hold, silently promising she would not move an inch. The king's voice came low, steady, and far more dangerous than any shout. "Explain yourself, Emma." The sound of her name from his lips made the guards stiffen. A human shouldn't have had the king's attention, let alone his request for clarity. Emma swallowed, but lifted her chin. "Their uniforms carry the scent from the lower kitchens," she said. "Ground berries. The cooks use them for the morning tonics. There's no way they came from the vault. And Liam..." She looked at the boy carefully tracing patterns on the floor with shaking fingers. "He was in the garden with me until the bells rang." A murmur spread across the room. The Queen's eyes flashed with irritation as she stepped closer, the air cooling around her. "You presume to think your human senses surpass those of my guards?" Her words were sharp, but Emma held firm. "Not beyond theirs," she said softly, "only beyond their intentions." The king raised a hand, and silence fell like a heavy curtain. He approached the guards slowly, each step precise. "Is what she says true?" he asked. The guards exchanged a glance. "Too quick, too guilty." "The human is confused," one insisted. "She fears the boy's punishment. She would say anything to protect him." Liam let out a small sound, barely a whisper, more a breath pushed through trembling lips. But Emma felt the meaning behind it. Fear, pleading, truth. She placed her hand over his, grounding him. "He has done nothing wrong," she repeated, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. The king's eyes lowered to his son. Something pained flickered there, something old and heavy. Then he looked at Emma again. "If you are wrong," he said softly, "your life will be the price." Emma felt the weight of those words settle into her bones, but she didn't retreat. "I understand," the Queen hissed under her breath, clearly displeased that her husband was even entertaining this human's claim. "This is absurd," she snapped. "The boy has always caused damage. He is unstable, unpredictable, and—" She stopped when the king shot her a warning glance. Emma noticed it with surprise, but also with a dawning suspicion that there was far more buried beneath these family dynamics than she had ever understood. Two maids rushed into the room suddenly, breathless, clutching a small wooden box. "Your Majesty," one cried, "we found this hidden behind the staircase, half burned." She handed it to the king with trembling hands. He opened it slowly, revealing a fragment of the royal seal and a small tool used to crack enchanted locks. The room erupted in whispers. Emma felt her pulse spike. "Look at the edges," she whispered. "The break is too clean. Liam's hands shake when he's overwhelmed. He couldn't have made a cut like that." The king inspected the fragment. His expression hardened. "Bring the scent reader," he ordered. A tall figure stepped forward from the shadows, one of the elder vampires whose abilities stretched far beyond physical strength. He lifted the fragment to his nose, inhaling deeply. Then he froze. "This scent does not belong to the prince," he announced. "It belongs to—" His eyes narrowed at the guards. "You." The hall exploded in gasps and curses. Emma felt Liam flinch at the noise, and she quickly covered his ears, pressing her forehead gently to his temple. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're safe." The guards attempted to run, but the king immobilized them with a single gesture. Their bodies slammed against the marble floor, held by invisible force. "Why?" he asked, voice trembling with controlled fury. "Why would you frame my son?" one guard answered through gritted teeth. "Because the Queen ordered it." The room froze. Emma's breath caught. Liam pressed closer to her, sensing the sudden shift. The king turned slowly toward his wife, his expression impossible to read. The Queen did not deny it. Instead, she lifted her chin defiantly. "He is not fit to inherit anything," she said coldly. "He threatens the stability of this kingdom, and humans like her," she pointed at Emma, "should not influence royal decisions." The king's anger was silent, deadly. Emma felt it ripple through the floor like a distant storm. Liam looked up at his father, eyes wide, seeking comfort he had rarely been offered. And something inside the king cracked. Emma saw it, saw the moment a father overcame a ruler. He turned to Emma. "Take him," he said, voice raw. "Protect him until I decide what must be done." Emma froze. "Me? You are the only one who saw him," the king said. "The only one who defended him." And the queen's expression twisted with quiet, lethal rage. Emma clasped Liam's trembling hand. She had no idea that protecting him meant stepping into a war far greater than a broken seal. Emma guided Liam through the narrow servant corridor, her heart still pounding from the confrontation in the throne room. The boy stayed close, brushing his shoulder against the wall as they walked. He traced his fingertips over the stone grooves, grounding himself with each familiar texture. His breaths were shallow but steadying. Emma kept her pace slow, matching his rhythm the way she had learned over months of caring for him. "You're safe," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she fully believed it. Not with the queen's eyes still burning in her memory. They reached the small chamber where Emma usually prepared his clothes for the morning. It wasn't luxurious, but it was quiet, dimly lit, and scented with lavender sachets she kept hidden in a drawer. Liam immediately gravitated toward the corner where a soft cushion lay. He curled his legs beneath him and began tapping a repetitive sequence on his knee. Emma exhaled, relieved he had found a pattern that soothed him. She pulled a chair close, careful not to scrape it across the floor. She had learned early on which sounds unsettled him. "You were very brave today," she said softly. Liam didn't look at her, but his tapping slowed. She interpreted it as understanding. Emma's mind churned with questions she didn't dare voice. Why had the queen framed her own son? Why now? What had she hoped to achieve? Emma wasn't blind to the struggle between the royal couple, but she had never imagined it would lead to something like this. She felt anger prick at her skin. Liam deserved protection, not manipulation. And the king, his face when the truth was revealed. He had looked devastated, betrayed, torn in a way that made Emma's chest tighten unexpectedly. A faint metallic click reached her ears. She stiffened. The door wasn't locked, but it had a habit of creaking, yet this sound was controlled, careful. Someone was opening it slowly. Emma rose just as the door swung inward and a shadow stepped inside. It was Rowan, one of the king's advisors. His sharp features and stoic demeanor made him seem carved from cold stone. "The king wants an update," he said evenly. His eyes darted to Liam, assessing him without warmth or cruelty. Just calculation. Emma stepped slightly in front of the boy. "He's calmer, but he's frightened." Rowan nodded once. "The king has ordered increased security around both of you. Guards he trusts personally." His tone carried a weight that told Emma he understood the queen's reach better than she did. "I need to know everything you observed." Emma recounted the sense, the guard's behavior, the boy's reaction, all the details she had pieced together in the moment. Rowan listened, his sharp gaze never leaving her face. "You're perceptive," he said when she finished. "Most humans wouldn't notice half of what you did." Emma looked away, uncomfortable under the unexpected praise. "It wasn't perception," she murmured. "It was loyalty." Rowan's eyebrow lifted. "To the crown?" She shook her head. "To him." Liam turned his head slightly at the sound of her voice. Rowan studied her again, this time with something more thoughtful in his expression. "The king trusts you," he said. "He doesn't trust easily, and he never trusts humans." Emma felt a chill run through her. That trust was both an honor and a burden she wasn't sure she was ready for. A knock sounded, abrupt and urgent. Rowan opened the door, and a guard Emma didn't recognize leaned in. "The queen is demanding access to the boy," he said. "She claims the king has no right to hide him from her." Rowan's jaw tightened. "He has every right," he said sharply. "And she knows it." He turned to Emma. "You must stay hidden for now. If she finds you, she will take the boy." Emma felt Liam's fingers brush her sleeve again, seeking reassurance. She knelt beside him. "We're staying together," she whispered. "I promise." His breathing steadied. Rowan gave her a small cloth pouch. "This is an emergency signal," he said. "Crush it between your fingers if you're in danger. It will release a scent only the king's trusted guards can track instantly." Emma held it carefully, aware of the power it carried. "Thank you." Rowan's eyes softened, just barely. Be vigilant. The Queen won't retreat. She's preparing something. After he left, Emma locked the door and slid a trunk against it. Liam watched her, head tilting to the side. It's to keep you safe, she explained. He reached out, placing his small hand on hers, an action rare enough that Emma felt her throat tighten. She sat beside him, her back against the wall. Outside, footsteps echoed, guards shifting into new positions. The air sharpened with tension. Emma didn't know it yet, but defending Liam had placed a target on her back. And the Queen. She wasn't the only one watching. The castle grew unnervingly quiet as night settled over the kingdom, the kind of silence that didn't soothe but warned. Emma felt it pressing in through the stone walls, thick and heavy, as if the building itself was holding its breath. She sat on the floor beside Liam, who had fallen asleep with his head resting on her lap, his breathing soft and uneven. She kept one hand on his shoulder, grounding both him and herself. Every creak in the corridor made her muscles tense. When the knock finally came, it wasn't loud. It was a gentle tap, too polite, too intentional. Emma's heart jolted. No one polite approached the servant wing at night. She rose quietly, easing Liam's head onto the cushion. She took slow steps toward the door, careful to avoid making the floorboards complain. The second knock came, still light, still wrong. "Emma," a calm voice murmured. "It's the king. Open the door." Emma froze. Something about the tone, flat, smooth, stripped of the slight warmth the king always carried when speaking of Liam, made her stop with her hand hovering over the doorknob. The king did not come alone, and he certainly didn't come without guards announcing him. Her pulse hammered. She whispered, "Liam, wake up!" But the boy stirred only faintly, deep in a protective sleep that often followed overwhelming days. "Emma," the voice coaxed again, perfectly mimicking the king's cadence. "I need to see my son." Her blood went cold. It wasn't him. Emma stepped back from the door. She grabbed the trunk she had used as a barricade and pushed it against the wood as quietly as she could. The knock turned sharper, losing its gentleness. "Open the door now." The voice cracked, the illusion slipping. Emma's stomach twisted. A mimic. A vampire whose talent relied on copying voices and scents well enough to pass through guarded spaces, but not well enough to fool someone who had spoken closely with the king. Emma reached for Liam, shaking him gently. "I need you awake," she whispered urgently. His eyes fluttered open, still clouded with sleep. She cupped his face. "You have to stay quiet for me, all right? Quiet and close." He nodded, instinctively leaning into her palm. The door rattled violently. "Emma," the false voice barked. "This is your last warning." Emma scanned the room. The windows were barred. The only exit was the door, and the mimic was right outside. Her breath hitched. She pulled out the small cloth pouch Rowan had given her, the emergency signal. She hesitated only a second. If she crushed it now, guards would arrive, but the Queen might intercept the call. If she didn't crush it, the mimic might break through before she had another chance. A sudden scraping noise dragged across the door, claws. The mimic had abandoned all pretense. Emma crushed the pouch. A sharp scent burst into the air, familiar enough that even Liam's eyes widened. The corridor outside exploded with noise. Footsteps, shouts, metal striking stone. The mimic hissed, the sound more animal than human, and slammed something heavy against the door. The wood cracked. Liam covered his ears, trembling, his breaths turning shallow. Emma wrapped her arms around him. "It's okay. I've got you," she whispered, though fear clawed at her throat. Suddenly, the mimic shrieked, a high, horrible sound that made Emma's teeth vibrate. Then came the crash of bodies colliding and the unmistakable bite of steel. "Stand down!" Rowan's voice roared from the hall. Emma didn't dare move until the fighting stopped. The silence afterward was sharp, broken only by labored breathing on the other side of the door. A moment later, Rowan shoved the door open, splintered wood scattering. His tunic was torn, and a long gash ran down his arm, already knitting. 2 guards dragged the mimic's unconscious body away. Emma pulled Liam closer. Rowan strode inside, scanning the room, his expression taut with something dangerously close to fear. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. Emma shook her head, though her hands trembled. He mimicked the king's voice, she said. Rowan swore under his breath. Then the queen has begun. Emma felt her stomach twist. What does she want? Rowan hesitated, then dropped his gaze to Liam. Not what, who. Liam's fingers curled into Emma's sleeve. Rowan kneeled in front of them. She won't stop. She believes the boy's existence threatens her plans for the throne. She will send soldiers, spies, assassins, whatever it takes. Emma swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. And the king? He's trying to stop her, Rowan said. But she is cunning, and she is furious. You must remain hidden. He looked at Emma, eyes fierce. And do not let anyone near him. Emma wrapped her arms more tightly around Liam, because tonight had proved one thing. Someone was willing to kill for this throne. Emma barely slept. Dawn crept through the narrow window, painting the stone walls in pale, trembling light. She sat upright with her back against the wall, Liam curled against her side like a wounded bird seeking warmth. His breaths were uneven, interrupted occasionally by soft hums he used to calm himself. Emma stroked his hair gently, keeping her movements slow and predictable. The mimic's attack still echoed in her mind. The borrowed voice, the claws, the desperation behind the door. Someone had sent that creature. Someone who wanted Liam gone. Footsteps approached from the corridor. Emma straightened. These were slow, measured steps, lacking the sharp rhythm of guards or the scraping slide of danger. Rowan appeared in the doorway, this time wearing fresh clothes and carrying a sealed scroll. His expression was more severe than the night before. You both need to move, he said quietly. The queen is spreading rumors. She claims Liam is dangerous, unstable, that he attacked her guards. Some believe her. Emma felt a surge of anger. That's a lie. Rowan nodded. Yes, but lies gain power quickly in courts. Liam pressed closer to Emma at the sound of Rowan's voice. The advisor noticed and softened his tone. We're relocating you to a safe chamber beneath the inner library. Only 3 people know it exists. Emma's breath caught. Is the king safe? Rowan hesitated. For now, but he's trying to contain the unrest, without revealing the truth about the queen. Emma knew what that meant. The king wasn't ready to expose his own wife. Not yet. Not until he had proof that went beyond her claims and manipulations. Emma rose carefully, helping Liam stand. He took small steps, his hand gripping the fabric of her sleeve. Rowan watched them with a strange mixture of pity and resolve. We must go quickly, he urged, and stay out of sight. Before they left the room, Emma paused and looked directly at the audience that would one day hear her story. Before we continue, tell me in the comments what you think of this story so far and what you would do in her place. Don't leave the video because what comes next will give you chills. With that final breath of courage, Emma guided Liam out of the chamber. The servant corridor was silent, save for the distant clatter of trays being prepared for the morning meal. Rowan led the way, keeping to the shadows where the sunlight didn't reach. Liam's steps followed a peculiar pattern, 2 quick, 1 slow, which Emma matched instinctively. She whispered soothing words, mindful of every corner they turned. When they reached the library, Rowan closed the heavy doors behind them and moved with purpose toward a shelf of ancient tomes. He pressed a hidden catch, and with a low groan, the shelf slid aside to reveal a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Liam hesitated, shrinking back. Emma knelt in front of him, cupping his cheeks gently. I know, she whispered. It's dark, and it's new, but I'll be with you every second. I won't let go. His breathing quickened, but he nodded, trusting her more than the world around him. Rowan descended first, lighting small wall sconces that flickered to life with a warm glow. Emma followed with Liam in her arms when the steps grew too steep. The hidden chamber at the bottom surprised her. It wasn't a cell or a cave, but a small, quiet room filled with old maps, velvet cushions, and thick rugs. A sanctuary disguised as storage. Liam drifted toward the corner immediately, touching the embroidered edges of a tapestry as if memorizing each thread. Emma felt herself exhale for the first time in hours. Rowan sealed the passage behind them. No one can enter without the king's command, he said, but the tightness in his eyes betrayed his worry. Emma, the queen's influence extends further than we realized. She is seeking alliances. Some within the court already support her claim that Liam is unfit for succession. Emma's jaw tightened. He's just a child. Rowan nodded. Yes, and that is precisely why some see him as a threat. Emma kneaded her hands together, anxiety twisting inside her ribs. Rowan stepped closer. You must stay alert. The Queen will not stop until she has him removed from the line of succession, by law or by force. He lowered his voice. And she knows you are the shield standing in her way. Emma felt a chill crawl across her skin. When Rowan finally left, sealing them inside the hidden room, Emma sat beside Liam and wrapped an arm around him. The kingdom above was shifting, alliances cracking like ice under pressure. And Emma understood something she had feared from the beginning. If she failed even once, Liam wouldn't live long enough to see the truth revealed. The hidden chamber became their world for the next day and night, a quiet pocket beneath the palace where the air felt heavy with dust and old memories. Emma tried to create some sense of routine for Liam. Soft humming, slow tapping patterns on the floor, warm tea when the anxiety tightened his chest, but the boy could sense the tension above them. He paced more often, tracing the same line between the wall and the rug over and over, his fingertips skimming the stone until they grew red. Emma gently redirected him each time, guiding him back to the tapestry he liked to touch, but his unease only deepened. Emma also felt the pressure. The weight of the Queen's ambition seeped through the castle like cold water. She could almost feel the walls tightening around them. Rowan's updates arrived sporadically, each time carrying more troubling news. Council members arguing, rumors spreading, the Queen demanding an audience with the elders. None of it boded well. By noon the next day, Emma found herself kneeling beside Liam as he pressed his forehead against the tapestry, breathing unevenly. "It's all right," she whispered, brushing a thumb over his shoulder. "You're safe here." But he turned his face slightly, his eyes flicking up to the ceiling as if he could sense movement through the floors above. Emma followed the motion, her heart thudding. Something was happening, something coming their way. Before she could rise, the wall behind the tapestry shuddered with a sudden thump, light but unmistakable. Liam jolted, covering his ears. Emma wrapped her arms around him instinctively. She held her breath, waiting. Another thump. Closer. A scraping sound followed, the dragging of metal on stone. "No," she whispered. They found the passage. But then Rowan's voice hissed from behind the tapestry. "Emma, open, quickly!" Relief washed through her so fast, her knees weakened. She pulled aside the tapestry, unlocking the concealed latch. Rowan stumbled in, sweat streaking his temples, his breathing labored. His clothes were disheveled, his usually composed expression sharpened with fear. "We have to move," he said. "Now." Emma pushed to her feet. "What happened?" Rowan cast a glance at Liam, then pulled Emma aside. "The Queen petitioned the council to seize the prince for his own good. She claims he's mentally unfit and dangerous." Emma's stomach twisted. "That's a lie," Rowan finished. "But she convinced enough members to force the king's hand. They've ordered Liam taken into custody by her personal guard." Emma's hand flew to her mouth. "He'll never come back," she whispered. Rowan nodded once. "Exactly. And the king can't openly oppose the council without risking a palace split. He sent me here with one order. You must get Liam out of the castle." Emma's breath stopped. "Out? Out," Rowan repeated. "Into the human borders. Somewhere the Queen has no jurisdiction. Somewhere you can protect him until the king resolves this." Emma felt terror spike in her chest. This wasn't hiding anymore. This was escape. Treason, in the Queen's eyes. She looked at Liam, who was sitting on the floor, knees hugged to his chest, rocking slowly. "He hates crowds," she whispered. "He panics when routines break. How can he—" Rowan touched her arm, grounding her. "He trusts you. That will be enough." Emma forced her shaking hands to steady. She approached Liam gently. "We need to go on a trip," she said, keeping her voice soft and rhythmic. "Just you and me." Liam blinked, then traced a small circle on his knee, the sign he used for confusion. Emma mirrored the movement on her own knee, offering reassurance. "I'll explain everything when we're safe, I promise." Rowan opened a second hidden passage, a narrow stairway leading even deeper underground. The air smelled damp and cold. Liam hesitated at the top step, shrinking back. Emma knelt and held out her hand. "You won't be alone," she whispered. After a few moments, he put his hand in hers. They descended slowly, Emma maintaining a steady rhythm with her steps so Liam could follow. Rowan brought up the rear, glancing over his shoulder with growing urgency. When they reached the bottom, a long tunnel stretched ahead, lit only by tiny crystal sconces that cast a dim blue glow. A cold draft swept through it, carrying the scent of earth and night air. "This leads outside the palace walls," Rowan said. "Once you reach the end, follow the path to the old stone bridge. The king will have someone waiting." Emma nodded, though fear coiled inside her like a tightening rope. She turned to Rowan. "Please, keep him safe while we're gone." "The king." Rowan's eyes softened. "I will." Liam tugged gently on her sleeve. Emma took his hand and inhaled deeply. They stepped into the tunnel. They had no idea the queen already knew they were escaping. The tunnel stretched endlessly ahead, the air growing colder with each step. Emma walked with Liam's hand tightly wrapped in hers, matching her pace to his uneven rhythm. The dim blue sconces flickered as if whispering warnings. Liam's breathing hitched every time the tunnel narrowed, but Emma murmured softly, repeating the simple patterns that grounded him. 2 taps on his wrist, a pause, then another tap. He responded by touching her elbow lightly, the silent signal that he was trying to stay calm. Halfway through, the ground vibrated faintly under their feet. Emma stopped. Liam froze instantly, his grip tightening. She glanced over her shoulder just as a gust of air blew through the tunnel, carrying the unmistakable fragrance of night orchids. A scent the queen favored, and one her elite guards used to mask their presence. Emma's pulse thundered. They were coming. She crouched to Liam's eye level. "We need to walk faster," she whispered. "Can you do that for me?" Liam's fingers tapped rapidly against his thigh. Fear, uncertainty. Emma took both his hands and placed them on her own chest. "Feel my breathing," she said. "Slow, together." Liam inhaled shakily, copying her. When his breath steadied, she stood and gently tugged him forward. They pressed on, but the vibrations grew stronger, echoing like distant thunder. Emma's heart pounded. She felt the urgency like a fire rising through her spine. The queen's guards were close enough now that their footsteps reverberated faintly, measured, predatory, impossible to outrun. Emma looked toward the faint light at the end of the tunnel. They were close, but not close enough. She took a shaky breath and spoke aloud. Not to Liam, but to the future listeners she hoped would understand the terror of that moment. "Before we continue, tell me if you would have the courage to live a story like this, or if something similar has ever happened to you. Don't leave the video, because what comes next will give you chills." The tunnel widened suddenly, revealing a metal grate blocking their path. Emma nearly cried out. The exit was right there. Beyond the grate she could see moonlight, trees swaying, the faint silhouette of the old stone bridge. Safety was just out of reach. Liam touched the grate with trembling fingers, tapping a fast pattern of panic. Emma tried to lift it. It didn't budge. She threw her weight against it. Nothing. Her breath spiraled into fear. "No, no, please." Her voice cracked. Footsteps thundered closer behind them. Emma looked around desperately. A lever. There had to be a lever. She scanned the walls with wild eyes, her palms slick with sweat. Liam suddenly tugged her sleeve and pointed, not to a lever, but to the floor. A small groove in the stone shaped like a circle, half hidden by dust. He knelt and traced the groove carefully, following its outline the way he traced the seam of his cushion when he needed comfort. Emma blinked. "Liam, what are you—" He pressed down with both hands, and with a loud, grinding click, the grate shuddered and began to rise. Emma stared in disbelief. You noticed that?" Liam's eyes flicked to hers, and for a moment she saw it. A spark of pride, faint but unmistakable. But they had no time to celebrate. The Queen's guards emerged into the tunnel behind them. Emma grabbed Liam's hand. "Run!" They dashed through the opening just as the grate reached halfway. Emma ducked under it, yanking Liam through. Behind them, armored hands reached out, grasping at the air. One guard snarled, eyes glowing with predatory hunger. Emma shoved the grate downward with all her strength. It slammed shut. A guard's hand was caught underneath, crushed between metal and stone with a dull crack. He screamed, jerking back. The others roared in fury. Liam flinched violently at the sound, curling into himself. Emma wrapped her arms around him, shielding him from the sight. "Don't look," she whispered. "Don't listen. You're safe. We're safe." The guards pounded on the grate, but it held, for now. Emma forced herself up and helped Liam to his feet. The night air washed over them, cool, sharp, alive. She could see the old stone bridge clearly now, bathed in pale moonlight. Relief surged through her. Then she froze. A tall figure stood at the center of the bridge, cloak fluttering like a shadow in the wind. Not the king's escort, the queen herself. Emma's breath died in her throat. The queen stepped forward, her eyes gleaming like cold silver. "You should have stayed hidden, Emma," she whispered across the distance. "You've made this inevitable." Liam trembled violently, sensing the danger radiating from her. Emma stepped in front of him, her voice breaking yet resolute. "You will not touch him." And the queen smiled, because this time she wasn't alone. Emma's pulse hammered in her ears as the queen glided closer, her cloak brushing the stone bridge like smoke. Behind her emerged two silent figures, elite vampires known only as shades. Their faces were masked, their movements fluid and predatory. Emma felt Liam shrink behind her, burying his fingers in the back of her shirt, trembling so violently she could feel the shudders in her own bones. The queen tilted her head, studying Emma with a mixture of contempt and twisted admiration. "You've caused quite a disruption," she said, her voice smooth as polished bone. "I underestimated you. A mistake I won't make twice." Her silver eyes drifted to Liam. "Step aside, Emma. His removal is necessary for the stability of the throne." Emma swallowed hard. "He's just a child." Her voice cracked, but she didn't move. The queen's lips curled in a cold smile. "Children can be threats, especially those who don't fit the mold I need." She stepped closer, the moonlight illuminating the sharp line of her jaw. "And you are a human who doesn't know her place." Emma felt her fear coil into something fierce. "I know exactly where my place is," she said quietly. "Right here, in front of him." Liam tugged her shirt twice, fear signal, but she squeezed his hand behind her back, promising silently that she wouldn't let him fall. The queen gave a soft, pitying laugh. "You think courage makes you powerful? I could end you before you take your next breath." She raised her hand, magic building at her fingertips like cold fire. Before she could release it, Liam let out a tiny sound, barely audible but sharp, distressed. It wasn't a word, but it carried meaning. The queen paused, startled. Emma turned slightly, placing her hand over Liam's. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm right here." The queen watched the exchange with narrowed eyes, her fascination mingling with irritation. "He speaks to you," she murmured. "Yet he says nothing to us." "He talks plenty," Emma said, voice trembling but steady. "You just never learned how to listen." The queen's gaze hardened instantly. "Shades," she commanded, "take them." The two masked figures moved forward without hesitation, steps silent but deadly. Emma panicked, pulling Liam back toward the trees, but then a blast of wind swept across the bridge, slamming into the shades with bone-rattling force. They staggered, barely catching themselves. The queen's cloak whipped around her. Her eyes flared in disbelief. Another figure stepped out from the shadows behind Emma and Liam. Tall, broad-shouldered, red-eyed. The king. "Enough," he growled, his voice shaking the air. Emma gasped, relief and fear colliding violently inside her. Liam clung to her tighter. The queen's expression twisted. "You dare interfere?" she hissed. The king stepped in front of Emma and Liam, placing himself between them and the incoming danger. "You attacked my son," he said, each word low and deadly. "You sent a mimic to kill him. You tried to drag him away under false claims." "He is unfit," the queen spat. "He will destroy everything you've built. He is my blood," the king snapped. "And I will not let you harm him." Magic crackled in the air, thick and electric. The shades lunged, but the king moved faster, blasting them back with a sweep of raw power that shook the bridge. Stones cracked beneath their feet. Liam whimpered at the sound, covering his ears. Emma crouched, pulling him into her arms, whispering comfort even as the world trembled. The queen reeled, her hair whipping around her face. "You fool," she hissed. "If you choose that child over the throne, then you choose war." The king didn't hesitate. "Then I choose war." He thrust his hand forward, unleashing a shockwave that sent the queen crashing backward across the bridge. Her scream echoed into the night as she struggled to rise. The shades scrambled to lift her, dragging her away into the darkness. The queen didn't look defeated, only enraged, her eyes glowing with a promise of vengeance. Emma stayed frozen until the last echo faded. The king turned slowly toward her and Liam. His chest heaved. The weight of what he had just done hung in the night like heavy fog. Emma searched his face, trying to read him. Anger, relief, shock, grief. Liam peeked out from behind Emma, eyes wide and shimmering. The king knelt in front of him, the movement slow, careful. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have protected you sooner." Liam stared at him for a long moment, then reached out with a trembling hand and touched the king's wrist, the smallest gesture of trust. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. The king looked up at her. "We can't stay here," he said. "The queen will return with more. I need to get him somewhere safe, and I can't do it without you." Emma nodded, fearful, overwhelmed, but resolute. She didn't know where they were going, but she knew one thing: she would not leave Liam's side. The king led them away from the bridge and into the dense forest beyond, where towering trees swallowed the moonlight and muffled every sound. Emma stayed close behind him, guiding Liam through the uneven ground. The boy clung to her sleeve, his breath shallow but steady, soothed only by the rhythmic taps she gave his wrist. Steady, gentle, familiar. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, a scent that clung to their clothes as they moved deeper into the woods. When they reached a secluded clearing, the king finally stopped. The tension in his shoulders was clear, even in the dim light. He turned to Emma, his voice low. "We cannot return to the palace, not tonight. The queen will rally her strongest. She will twist the council further against us." His jaw tightened. "Liam is safer far from the kingdom until I can expose her crimes." Emma swallowed, tightening her grip on the boy's hand. "Where will we go?" The king hesitated. For the first time, he looked almost uncertain. "There is an old sanctuary far beyond the borders, a hidden place where vampire law cannot reach. Humans know it as the Silent Refuge. The journey will be difficult." His eyes moved to Liam, softening. "But it is the only place she cannot touch him." Emma nodded. Fear coiled in her stomach, but so did determination. She glanced at Liam, who was studying the leaves beneath his feet, pushing them into patterns only he understood. "We can do it," she said firmly. Liam looked up, tapping her hand twice. Agreement. Before they continued, Emma looked directly toward the invisible audience, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Before we continue, tell me if you would have the courage to live a story like this, or if something similar has ever happened to you. Don't leave the video, because what comes next will give you chills." The king motioned for them to sit briefly. He knelt before Liam, not as a ruler or warrior, but as a father trying desperately to reach a child he had kept at arm's length. "Liam," he whispered, placing a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "I know I've failed you. I know I haven't given you the safety you deserve, but I promise I will protect you now. I will not let her hurt you again." Liam's breathing slowed. He stared at his father's hand, then lifted his own and placed it on top, just for a second, before pulling back. It was small, fleeting, but it made the king exhale shakily, as if that single touch had cracked something open inside him. Emma saw it clearly. He adored his son, despite everything. The fear he had carried, the fear of not knowing how to help a child who saw the world differently, had been weaponized by the queen. Emma's chest tightened with a mix of anger and empathy. "We should move," the king said after a moment. "The shades will recover quickly." They walked through the forest in silence, Branches snapped under their feet, and the wind hissed between the trees. Emma felt watched. She glanced back constantly, her heart hitching with every rustle. Liam suddenly stopped, pulling her arm. He crouched and pressed his ear to the ground. "What is it?" she whispered. He tapped 3 fast beats on her palm. "Danger." The king stiffened. "She's sending trackers," he said. "They're close." Emma's pulse spiked. "What do we do?" The king looked around the forest, calculating. "I need to draw them away from you. They're following my scent." Liam let out a distressed whimper, grabbing Emma tighter. The king went still at the sound. He knelt in front of his son again, cupping his face gently. "I will return," he whispered. "I promise." But Liam shook his head rapidly, panic rising. Emma stepped forward. "He won't understand if you leave," she said softly. "He'll think you're abandoning him again." The king closed his eyes, pain flickering across his face. "Then I need you to keep him moving. Follow the river ahead. It leads to the foothills. I'll rejoin you there." Emma hesitated, but nodded. "Be careful." He gave her a grateful look, a rare crack in the armor. Then he vanished into the darkness, his form dissolving into the shadows. Emma inhaled shakily and crouched beside Liam. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're following him, just not right next to him. He's clearing the way." Liam's breathing steadied when she tapped the familiar pattern on his wrist. She guided him forward, deeper into the woods, following the faint sound of rushing water. But the forest grew colder, shadows thicker. Emma kept glancing behind her. Just as they reached the riverbank, a chilling howl tore through the night, one she had never heard before. Liam froze. Emma's blood turned to ice. Because whatever made that sound wasn't a vampire. It was something worse. Something the queen should never have been able to control. The howl echoed through the forest like a living thing, rattling Emma's ribcage. It wasn't the sharp cry of a predator or the distant call of a wolf. It was deeper, layered, ancient. Liam flinched violently, covering his ears as his whole body folded inward. Emma crouched beside him, her hands trembling as she guided him behind a fallen tree trunk. "It's okay! It's okay!" she whispered, though terror prickled every inch of her skin. The shadows between the trees shifted. The moonlight dimmed as though swallowed. Then Emma saw it. 2 gleaming amber eyes floating in the darkness. A hulking silhouette followed, claws scraping against the earth. The creature stepped into the faint light, revealing its twisted form. Tall as 2 men, with coarse dark fur and elongated limbs, it moved with unnatural precision. A nightborn. A forbidden hybrid born from ancient experimentation. Something even vampires feared. Emma's breath hitched. "The queen summoned you," she whispered under her breath, horror curling in her stomach. The creature growled, its nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air, following the traces of their scent. Liam trembled so hard his teeth chattered. Emma placed both hands over his ears and held him close. She had no weapon, no plan, no way to outrun it. But she had one thing stronger than fear. She had to protect him. The creature lunged. Emma threw herself sideways with Liam in her arms, rolling through the mud as claws tore into the earth where they had knelt. Pain shot up her arm, but she didn't let go. She scrambled to her feet, tugging Liam toward the riverbank. "Move, sweetheart, please!" Liam stumbled but followed her, his breathing jagged, panic surging. The nightborn roared again, the sound shaking the leaves from nearby branches. Emma looked over her shoulder just as it leapt forward, fast, too fast, and she braced for the impact. A burst of red light slammed into the creature mid-air. The nightborn crashed into a tree with such force that bark exploded around them. Emma shielded Liam from the debris. She looked up, and there he was. The king stood at the edge of the river, his eyes glowing with raw fury. "Get away from them!" he roared. Emma felt her knees weaken with relief. Liam let out a tiny sound, fear mixed with recognition. The king extended one hand toward the boy, not touching, but close enough for Liam to sense him. "I'm here," he whispered. "You're not alone." But the creature rose again, snarling. The king moved faster than Emma had ever seen. Shadows coiled around his arms as he summoned the oldest magic in his blood. The nightborn lunged, its claws slicing through the air. The king struck it with a blast of power that sent ripples across the ground. The creature staggered, but it didn't fall. It rushed him again, teeth bared. Emma watched helplessly, holding Liam tightly against her. She could feel the boy shaking, his fingers curling into her clothes, his breath sharp and uneven. She pressed her forehead to his temple. "It's almost over," she whispered, praying it was true. The Nightborn caught the king by the shoulder, throwing him back. He hit the ground hard, sliding across the mud. Emma gasped, instinctively stepping forward before catching herself. Liam let out a distressed whimper. The creature roared and advanced. "No!" Emma cried, her voice breaking. Before the Nightborn could strike, Liam suddenly pulled away from her. Emma froze in horror. "Liam!" The boy stepped between the king and the monster, tiny and trembling, tears streaking down his face. He touched the ground twice with his palm, the same grounding rhythm Emma had used with him countless times. Magic pulsed. Emma felt it in her teeth, in her bones. The air shifted around Liam, vibrating. The Nightborn hesitated, tilting its head. Liam tapped the ground again, slower, deliberate. The creature stepped back. Emma's breath caught. She didn't understand, but the king did. His eyes widened. "He's calming it," he whispered. "He can sense its patterns." The Nightborn whimpered, lowering its head. Liam reached out a small, trembling hand and touched the creature's snout. A soft hum escaped him, a fragile sound, but filled with something ancient. The creature shuddered, then backed away into the trees, disappearing into the darkness. Silence swallowed the clearing. Emma burst into tears, pulling Liam into her arms. The king knelt beside them, placing a gentle hand on the boy's back. "You saved us," he whispered. "My son, you saved us." Liam pressed his forehead against his father's chest. A quiet, broken connection finally mended. Emma wiped her face, overwhelmed. The king looked at her with gratitude so deep it nearly shattered her. "I owe you everything," he said, "and the queen will never touch him again. I will make sure of it." They walked together toward the distant horizon, toward safety, toward a life where Liam could finally breathe without fear. Emma held the boy's hand. The king walked at his other side. And for the first time, Liam didn't walk behind them. He walked between them. What did you think of the story? Subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who will also be moved today.